You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, I was going to talk to start with about what's happening. National Assembly back in session. Everyone's trying to score some points today. But I want to start with the Anthony Housefather story first. So we all know what happened. He lost, his job basically when he sort of broke ranks with the Liberals, or at least with the Prime Minister. And now he got odd jobs. I guess the same kind of a job back. So what's going on here?
Well, yeah, what's going on? Trudeau blinked. And by the way, before we go any further, I too want to wish you a very happy birthday, Aaron. Even though the sun has gone behind a cloud, I'm sure that sooner or later it'll come back out. Listen, I think we're seeing here, and this is not a very complex issue. Anthony Housefather was removed. He was a parliamentary assistant to, I forget which ministry now, but he was. This was back in September. He was the only member of parliament, certainly the only Trudeau Liberal, who wouldn't toe the Trudeau line and did not vote in favor for amendment to the Official Languages Act, which essentially injected, surgically inserted sections of Bill 96, a discriminatory Anglophobic piece of legislation in Quebec, into the preamble of the Official Languages Act. And all I can say is a lot of people were sort of, nodding and rolling their eyes and saying, well, it just goes to show you, you've got to have party discipline and look at that. Well, he lost, he keeps his base salary, which is nothing to sneeze at. It's about $190,000 a year for all MPs. It cost him about close to $19,000 extra a year being a parliamentary assistant. All of a sudden, 4 months later, it is back. And you know what? I don't have any questions for Anthony Housefather, because Anthony Housefather has been very, very straightforward. I would love, and I know I'll never get an answer, but even if you want to just leave it in a little suggestion box, your answers, folks, I'd love to ask the rest of the Liberal caucus, especially those who are representing people in Quebec, many of them Anglophones. How do you feel today? Do you still feel as good about your choice? Do you still feel as how can I put it, as politically secure in your choice now as it was 4 months ago? Because I think in the big picture, this won't be a page of Canada's political history, but I think a lot of people are going to remember what happened over the past 4 months, and sooner or later we're going to have an election, and maybe, I'm not saying it's going to cost you your seat, but I'm pretty sure you'll be asked about it between now and the next election, should you in fact attempt to hang on to your seat in the next vote.
Okay.
It feels to me like, and again, it reflects badly for me on Trudeau and how he reacted to this, right? Like, so this is your punishment. You've been put in detention. Okay, now you've paid your penance and you get to have the lollipop again. That's how it feels.
Well, I mean, I'm as far as I'm concerned, and I think you guys know I'm not one for spouting off homey little bromides about doing the right thing, but this goes to show you that you can never go wrong doing the right thing. You can never go wrong sticking to your beliefs. And if I think the sad thing is, if we're talking about Anthony Housefather, we're talking about his conduct as a rarity. I think that's the sad part of the story. But the fact of the matter is, as I say, I don't think he ever did anything but keep his head held high through sticking to his convictions. But once again, comparisons may be odious, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people who did not do that. And I think the fact of the matter is, given that he's the only MP who stood up for what he believed in and what a lot of other people believed in, some of that people saying that what we believe in is called, the Charter of Rights and the Constitution of this country. I think that's a very interesting lesson that was taught today, that, on top of everything else, he got back whatever that punishment was. And as you say, Natasha, it was just a lollipop. But the thing is, even more important, his reputation is completely intact.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that's probably the most important to him, I would think, as well.
That is him. That is exactly him.
Jim, let me switch Let me switch this over to what's happening, of course, today. National Assembly resuming sitting. Your headline here says, were there ever any Federalists in the CAQ? What brings that up?
Well, I was wondering about this because, let's face it, we have spent the CTV and CJAD has spent more time interviewing Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon in the last 6 days than you have spent interviewing Francois Legault in the past 6 years. Things are changing. They are changing rapidly. And one of the big changes is that the support, the péquiste, the separatist support for the CAQ, which we thought was, what some thought was an indicator that, it's all over now, and the schism between those 2 points of view in Quebec is over. We want this CAQ, we want this alternative. They have hoisted up the Jolly Roger. They're saying we can't stand the CAQ, we can't stand Legault, and we're going to support the PQ. And we've got the numbers to show it now in 3 consecutive polls. However, I had always been told the narrative, or the legend, if you will, that was created about the Coalition Avenir Québec was that it was, in fact, a coalition. It wasn't just separatists. It was from all walks of Quebec's political life. Now, am I to understand that we haven't seen a commensurate increase in support for parties that contend that or say that they are federalists and that they believe in Canada, that these federalists within the CAQ never existed? We've seen a huge bump for a separatist party. We haven't seen a bump, the equivalent bump for a party that purports to be federalist. And I'm really wondering whether, in fact, the coalition was actually between Quebec separatists and Quebec nationalists, which in Quebec means when you're a nationalist, it means you don't really have the courage to say out loud that you're a separatist. So to me, that seems to be the outcome here, and it really seems to have affected the CAQ's brand. Because let's face it, if we're talking to Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, he's a separatist, but you know what? He says it to your face. He says that he's going to hold the referendum on sovereignty. In other words, there's nothing there being held in reserve because just in case we may not like what the polls are doing. Apparently, we have 2 situations here where we have Anthony Housefather, who's basically sticking to what he believes in, gets his redemption after 4 months, and here's Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon doing nothing other, and he's told you this in your podcast, Aaron, doing nothing other than being him, saying honestly what is going on, and he all of a sudden his poll numbers go up. I think that doesn't say so much about Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon as it does about all the other parties at the National Assembly.
I wonder if that puts pressure on, for example, the CAQ, and it's never really been that case before, and you're right. For all the times we've had Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon on, you could count the number of times we've had Francois Legault, and that number would be 0 in the last 4 years. Does this put, Jim, in your estimation, pressure on the CAQ to get out there and start talking more? Or not?
Absolutely. It was quite remarkable because normally it would have been, I guess, in the form of a news story. There is a message on the Québécois website, the TVA website, the PKP-owned website, from the director, the president of the CAQ. It is not a news report. It's not an interview. It is an unedited, pristine, as-written message from the president of the CAQ saying, no, we're not engaged in dodgy fundraising.
What?
We are, in fact, adhering to the rules, and let's set the record straight and this and that. And I thought that was rather remarkable because I guess they figure they can get, space for free over at Québécois. But yeah, they're going to have to work with Radio Canada. God help us all. They're going to have to work to a certain extent with Anglo media, if only for the image that's being projected outside. But yeah, the thing is, the CAQ is in full-blown damage control mode, and we don't know how much deeper the sub is going to sink before they find a way to stop the descent. But right now, things don't look too rosy.
How did things go in the National Assembly today?
Didn't sound very remarkable to me, but you know what? Everyone's keeping their powder dry. And you know what else? Here's what happened in the National Assembly. Everybody was paying attention to, wait for it, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, because he turns around and says, well, if I had a PQ government, cabinet ministers will be banned from attending fundraising events, which he knew. It sounds very great and Boy Scouty, and it's marvelous. The fact is he knew, the CAQ are already saying we didn't do anything wrong. The Liberals can't stand up and steal the idea because they're not exactly the paragons when it comes to, how can I put it, above board fundraising. They've had problems with fundraising scandals in the past. So yeah, he scores another easy point right from center court simply because there's nobody trying to take the ball away from him. How long is this going to last? I don't know, but it's fun to watch.
Pretty smart politicking from a young guy, huh? Take those things, run with them.
I got to tell you guys, there was a hint of this. I don't know if you remember, and folks can look it up on YouTube. When he was running for the PQ leadership, he made this YouTube kind of leadership campaign commercial where he ripped it off from Rocky when he was training. Like, he was running through the woods with a log and everything. And it was the cleverest thing you ever saw. And you looked at that and you said, this is a candidate fucking des autres. And sure enough, this is what it's proving to be. His caucus, his 3-member caucus, has got, well, 2 of them have a zillion years more experience than he does, but I got to tell you, we're talking about him, and people like what they see, at least for now.
Yeah.
James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
The Matt.